Have you ever felt like you're stuck in an endless cycle of job searching futility? You spend hours crafting the perfect resume and cover letter, submitting hundreds of applications just to be rewarded with radio silence or automated rejection emails.
You have 0 messages.
Maybe you finally get an interview, you put on your best professional persona, nail all the questions, thinking this is finally the one. But no, even then it always ends the same, the crushing disappointment when you inevitably don't get the job. I know your advice to just keep persevering. They tell you getting hired is a numbers game, just keep applying and eventually you'll land something. Work hard and it will all pay off. At least that's what we've been conditioned to believe, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that the system is broken. Submitting hundreds or even thousands of applications doesn't mean anything anymore. Hard work is no longer rewarded like it used to be. The mental, emotional, and financial toll of the new job hunting reality simply isn't worth it. The traditional bargain used to be you get an education, put your time in climbing the career ladder, and in return, you can have financial stability. But for many young people entering or stuck in today's job market, that pact is shattered. So why do we keep playing a game that's clearly rigged against you? We've all seen those entry-level job listings and gotten our hopes up momentarily before crashing back down.
Employers think that doing more interviews is a good thing. And it's not a good thing.
Entry-level means it should be a position for, well, people entering that career field or industry, right? Recent graduates, those transitioning from other jobs, people with little to no direct experience. Except nowadays, almost every so-called entry-level job expects 1 to 3 years minimum of related experience. How are you supposed to get experience if no one will hire you without already having it? It's an endless catch-22 for young people trying to gain a foothold in corporate America. Sure, you can try highlighting your internships, part-time jobs, or transferable skills. But often it still isn't enough these days. Employers want their entry-level employees starting off already productive, already contributing. No ramp-up time or training investment on their part. For college students, this means struggling to find that crucial first step after getting your diploma. 4 years in school studying your passion supposedly sets you up for career success. Yet right out the gate, corporations make clear that paper degree matters little compared to experience you likely don't have yet at 22 years old. It's demoralizing and makes you start questioning whether all that time and money on education was worthwhile, and led to nothing but student debt and moving back in with your parents while still desperately trying to find anyone willing to take a chance on your potential. And even when you finally make it past the initial resume screening and get brought in for interviews, it seems like the hiring process has become exponentially more ridiculous in recent years.
Tell me about yourself.
Sir, I am sitting in front of yourself.
Maybe 2 short conversations has ballooned into this 5, 6, if not more stage gauntlet. You start wondering if you're interviewing at the CIA with how in-depth and drawn out it gets. How many people exactly do you need to prove yourself to? Spoiler alert, even if you somehow run that marathon flawlessly, you still probably won't get the job. Because the truth is much of it has become performative. HR checking boxes, feeling like they're doing proper due diligence, when in reality so much comes down to behind-the-scenes preferences, internal referrals, and blatant discrimination. Of course, no one will admit that out loud, and recent grads aren't the only ones slammed by unreasonable experience expectations. Overqualified applicants face their own equally frustrating experiences, jumping through all those hoops often to just be rejected for having too much experience. Employers are scared you'll get bored or leave sooner than they want, or even worse, that you'll expect better pay and benefits. When the heck did doing what you were told would lead to success, getting an education, building a strong resume suddenly become a hindrance? The whole process has become this crazy moving target. Even if you check every box and adopt every suggested strategy, at the end of the day, a lot of it is completely outside your control. You're at the whim of whichever HR screening software they decided to use that day. Feels an awful lot like trying to navigate a broken system with no transparency or accountability. Remember when job searching was just a temporary blip? Fill out some applications for a couple of weeks, nail an interview or 2, sign the offer letter, then you're back to work. Ah, simpler times. Unfortunately, the average job hunt is now dragging out months or even years, no longer just a short pit stop between positions. Statistics show most searches take around 6 months on average, but it's becoming more commonplace to hear stories of people submitting hundreds, if not thousands, of applications over 1 to sometimes 3+ years before finally landing a role.
There are millions and millions of Americans who are applying for those jobs but getting rejection after rejection.
Can you imagine filling out job applications being your full-time job with no income? Hour after draining hour trying to break through the automated screening bots and repetitive online forms? Customizing your cover letter and resume each time, attempting to mask the scent of desperation slowly growing stronger each day, only to usually be rewarded with silence or yet another rejection.
Go now and never return.
Going through multiple rounds of complex interviews, sometimes across weeks or months for a single position you get more invested in, only for the hiring manager to randomly ghost, leaving you confused and paralyzed, wondering what could have gone wrong. Rinse and repeat ad infinitum with no light at the end of the tunnel. Now, this grueling marathon slog might pay off eventually, sure, but at what cost? The emotional and mental health impacts of long-term joblessness should not be downplayed, especially when combined with dwindling financial runways.
The stress of unemployment, including the financial burden, has taken a toll on our mental health.
Yet more and more people, predominantly younger generations, are being forced to endure this slow burn torture, all while being gaslit that if it's just taking too long, the problem must be with us, not the broken system. With so many candidates flooding the job market these days, often desperate and willing to take whatever they can get, the balance of power has shifted completely into the employer's court. Job seekers wander the drought-ridden wasteland while corporations sit comfortably in their corner offices drinking bottled water. Okay, a bit dramatic, but not far off from how lopsided it has all become. Employers can afford to be exponentially more selective and particular with their supposed requirements, knowing there's 100 other applicants who at least on paper can check those boxes. Never mind if they have the culture fit or soft skills. When there's enough otherwise qualified candidates, companies start getting delusional, thinking they can hold out for some mythical perfect candidate that likely doesn't exist. Or even once you make it to the interview stage, they might still leave that role unfilled for months, unwilling to compromise. See, businesses today aren't worried about filling open jobs with capable workers. They're worried about saving every penny, running skeleton crews into the ground, and avoiding risk even if it hurts productivity. Rather than properly staffing up and training employees, they push the workload onto existing teams. Those who remain employed get saddled with 3-4 people's responsibilities without adequate compensation. What are they going to do? Quit. This is the stark, unbalanced reality of the modern job seeker, fighting tooth and nail for the privilege to be allowed to work while business owners luxuriate comfortably in this employer's market. You would think that after you manage to secure a position, showing your worth and loyalty would provide some protections, right? Put in the hours, take on extra work, and do whatever it takes to add value, that devotion will pay off. At least that's how it traditionally worked. Yet increasingly, we see even reliable veteran employees get burned by the constant push for efficiency and cost savings. When layoffs come, it often doesn't matter how hard you worked or the years you gave to that company. You get the same cold severance in exchange for signing away your rights package as the rest, kick to the curb to fend for yourself. But sometimes it gets even worse than that basic betrayal of workforce reduction. There have been recent examples of people literally having to re-interview for their own jobs during or after mergers, acquisitions, or restructuring. Imagine giving 5, 10, even 20 years of your career to an organization. You helped build processes, served customers, made higher-ups richer. Then one day doesn't matter. Some cold-eyed executive decides your job can be cut to make this quarter's earnings look better. Or positions get consolidated and you have to prove yourself all over again to some outside team that has no clue what you've already contributed. It's the height of indignity. Yet more and more recognized names across multiple industries have begun resorting to these means. Loyalty is no longer rewarded. You're only as valuable as your current price tag dictates. The moment boosting margins supersedes your humanity is the moment you become expendable. Tough to keep motivated when even corporate veterans get flung to the wolves? Why invest so much of yourself when you end up getting stabbed in the back in the end? By this point, hearing all the ways the current job landscape has warped into this dysfunctional, harmful system, you've probably already considered some of the mental impacts. How could you not after facing months, if not years, of constant rejection and uncertainty? Obviously, the financial strain does plenty of damage on its own. Savings get drained. Debts pile up, your economic future starts looking nightmarish, but many don't give enough credence to the emotional carnage wreaked by long-term joblessness. Having to appear smiling and enthusiastic, telling your story over and over in interviews that lead nowhere. The dread of opening your inbox and wondering how many automatic rejections will be waiting for you today. Endlessly second-guessing if you're doing something wrong or if it's just the luck of the draw. Over time, it chips away insidiously at your self-confidence. You start believing you actually don't have what it takes. Why else would all these trained professionals keep deciding you're not the right fit? Imposter syndrome sinks its claws in. Soon you're expecting all new prospects to end with disappointment. Determination becomes cynicism. The effort feels meaningless. You question your worth. It stops being shocking when an application disappears into the void unanswered. After going through just some of the realities of what the job search and career landscape looks like today, the takeaway should be clear. The old promises have been broken. Getting a degree, working your way dutifully up the ladder, paying your dues, it no longer results in financial stability like the generations before us. You can play the game flawlessly and still end up drained, depressed, and with little to show years later. The mental taxation costs just as much as the bank account dwindling to nothing. At some point, you have to step back to assess if it's actually worth another 6 months struggling through the application battlefield. How much more disappointment and self-doubt can you take? Because make no mistake, the game is currently rigged. The system twisted from its original intentions to provide meaningful work and adequate pay in return for labor and loyalty. Instead, even decades-long veterans get thrown out during restructuring. Job security is gone. If the old rules fail us, it's time to make new ones. But first, we have to help open people's eyes to why jobs today don't pay off anymore and change the prevailing cultural attitudes still rooted in the past. If you like this video, check out my recent video, How Living in the Suburbs is Making You Poor, which uncovers the financial realities behind the suburban myths many still take for granted.